Hi everyone, Bandanner here, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this week's WARNO Devblog, which we start on a rather somber note. Eugen did leave this to the end of the devblog, but perhaps it's because I'm old-fashioned, perhaps it's because I'm British, I'm not sure, but I feel this sort of thing deserves to go at the front. And that is that Eugen are sad to announce the death of one of their team members on Thursday the 27th, Ryan Amarat. Ryan was only 29 and originally from the French Alps. He had a brief span in the French Army Chasseurs Alpins before joining Eugen Systems as a game designer in May 2022. He earned his stripes on WARNO and SOUTHAG's Army General Campaigns and Operations, and as such was a most promising member of Eugen's team. Ryan had just taken on more responsibilities and was a driving role on WARNO's new SOUTHAG expansion. Outside of work, Ryan had a passion for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he practiced at a high level. He intended to become a teacher of martial arts, himself once landing his black belt, a level for which he was actively training. Ryan passed away at home on Thursday evening from what appears to be heart failure. Our thoughts are with his girlfriend, parents and family. Ryan Amarat was a cheerful and passionate colleague who will be dearly missed. And the reason I put it at the front perhaps is for a few things. Firstly, out of respect for Ryan, that it should go at the front here. Also, I think it's important just to remember sometimes that game developers are human too. And I think that's something sometimes people forget. So, that goes here. But let's move on to the rest of the news from this week's devblog. Okay, so let us move on. So today we're getting a look at the 3rd SOUTHAG division, which will be the first Spanish division coming to WARNO, and they are the Armoured Division number 1 Brunete. Or I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Spanish one because I don't speak any Spanish, so I'm going to move on rather than try and pronounce the Spanish. I apologize in advance, but let's just call it the Armoured Division. Okay. Spanish Armed Forces history. So Spain emerged from Franco's decade-long dictatorship in the late 1970s, eventually joining NATO in 1982. Far from the Iron Curtain and cornered on the southern flank of Europe, the Spanish armed forces in the 1980s were on a path of internal transformation and downsizing. While, yes, any kind of potential World War III conflict with the Warsaw Pact was nominally on the table, it was not foreseen as a reality. That is, until WARNO's March to War hits. Democratic Spain's role in the 1980s NATO needs to be seen through the lens of the military's role in the preceding dictatorship. They supported Franco as the Caudillo, taking part in a repressive military police state and focused chiefly on internal security. Having won the Spanish Civil War in 1939 against the socialistic democratic forces, heavily backed by communists, Franco's fascist regime evolved over time, at first courting Hitler, then remaining neutral during World War II. Deep in poverty and heavily isolated, Francoist Spain gradually opened up from the 1950s onwards. Reform saw admittance to the United Nations, while the United States saw an opportunity on Europe's flank. With Spain acting as a helpful anti-communist force, the Americans not only provided financial help, but also opened up several key military facilities and bases in the country. After the ascension to democracy in 1978 for a short moment, Spain saw the spectre of military dictatorship in 1981 loom again during an eventful coup d'etat attempt in which the Armoured Division number 1 Brunete played a part. This was just a blip, and for the rest of the 1980s, Spain proved to be a solid but relatively withdrawn NATO ally. So, Spain in NATO. As a new NATO member, Spain was expected to commit troops to the defence of Western Europe. The Spanish Fuerzas Armadas were to provide a parachute battalion to the ACE mobile force, as well as at least one corps more that below in case of hostilities, either a mountain corps for service in the Mediterranean theatre, Italy, Greece or Turkey, and the Armoured Division number 1 to be sent to southern West Germany. This formation could be expanded by follow-up forces to a full mechanized corps. Our WARNO World War III scenario envisions the second option, with the Brunete, I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, rushing through France to join SOUTHAG. This plan was considered by High Command but never tested in real-life conditions or in exercises. As we are considering that Canada will also be able to airlift 2 brigades across the ocean, transporting a division by rail from Spain to France is not implausible. So, more detail on this division. So it was originally created in 1943, its name referring to the important Spanish Civil War battle of Brunete in 1937, which saw a nationalist strategic victory after counter-attacking the Republican-started offensive near Madrid. I don't know much about the Spanish Civil War, I'm afraid. It was also the largest tank battle during the war. During its lifetime, the division was considered one of the best armed and most powerful divisions in Spain during its lifetime. Originally equipped with German Panzer IVs and Soviet tanks, the T-26, after the normalization of relations with the United States in the 1950s, the division was equipped with American-made equipment, later augmented by French weaponry. Interesting. During the coup d'etat attempt in 1981, the division barracked in Madrid and received orders to assist the rebels. Several high-ranking divisional officers were part of the conspiracy, though other members of the military effectively countermanded the division's deployment during the coup. By the late 1980s, the division was a small one, with only 2 brigades thanks to the aforementioned downsizing in the early 1980s. This meant it was close to the scale to a French division rather than other NATO formations. Considering that the division was to be one of the first elements of the mechanized corps, much like the in-game French 5EZ, we have attached some additional independent support units. This brings the division up to a full divisional strength. That's not where the similarities with the French end, however. Spain was the main user of the AMX-30 outside of France itself. All things considered, the Spanish army of the late Cold War was a mix of French and American equipment, including a few domestic designs. So, how does it look in WARNO? Well, logistics-wise, its logistics was mediocre. The division was intended to be strategically projected into West Germany with only a paper plan to guide it. The corps it intended to form was also non-existent in the Spanish army at the time. All of this represented in the games category. So, supply units include the FOB. I'm surprised they're getting a FOB if you're saying the logistical base was mediocre. Okay, fine, they're getting a FOB. The new PEG ASO 3046 light truck and the M548A2 armoured supply vehicles. Command units include the M577 and the new BMRPC. This latter unit is a command variant of the domestic 6x6 wheeled APC series. Infantry is pretty decent for a smaller armoured NATO division, but its infantry is a scarce commodity. You just said it's pretty decent, then you're saying it's scarce. Who is writing these things, Eugen? You can't have it both ways. I guess they could be decent in quality, but scarce, I guess. Anyhow, it's a good thing that the recon troops provide some additional feet on the ground and firepower. So Spanish late Cold War foot soldiers were widely equipped with the CET-MEC battle rifle, which can be considered roughly the G3's ancestor. The main machine gun was the MG42/59, which is, nothing more than the evergreen Hitler's buzzsaw from World War II, rechambered to NATO's 7.62mm. Squad 8A weapons were either the M65, a locally improved Korean War era M20 Super Bazooka, or the brand new domestic-made C90CR disposable rocket launcher. Other weapons included the Z70-B SMG. So onto the infantry, which can be divided into the following units. Fusileros. That's an interesting name. Anyhow, squads were the main Spanish infantry. Depending on the platoon's armaments, squads were often reorganized on a task-by-task basis. This means that squad strengths vary between 9 to 11 soldiers on average. These units come in a regular variant with the CETME and the MG42/59, the M65 version, which is the same but with an M65, the C90 version, which has the CTME and the C90R, as well as a 6-man command flavour with the Z70Bs, CTMEs, or CETMEs even, and smoke grenades. All of these squads can deploy in a PEGASO 3046 truck or a TOA, Spanish designation for the M113A1. Then there are the Zapadoras, which are a divisional 9-man strong combat engineer squad armed with ZB-70Bs and either satchel explosive or M65s. They are also available in the 6-man command variant. The same transport options will be available, plus a limited number of TOA Zapadoras with bulldozer blades. And then there are the new Policia Militar, which are 4-man squads armed with the Z70B and driving their own Santana PA, a short wheelbase Land Rover built locally under license. Both units come with military police trait. Infantry weapon support teams include the Milan 1 and Milan 2, deployable in the Santana Jeep, TOA or TOA Milan, the MG 42/59 heavy machine guns, the Lag 40 40mm automatic grenade launchers, a domestic design for Spain. These are similar in stats to the American Mark 19, coming in either the Santana Jeeps or an armed BMR-PP Lag 6x6 wheeled APC armed with a Lag 40, so double Lag 40s. The C120/20 GAI-BO1 is a 20mm AA autocannon strapped to a HMG carriage, making it in effect a super heavy ground-based 20mm machine gun. The Eugen team declines any and all responsibility for any puns its official designation may generate. Oh, I see. Okay. I see what they're getting at. Anyhow, moving on to artillery. A good category for this division. Each brigade had its own artillery group, plus an entire divisional regiment was available as well. Some additional units have been attached to the division in West Germany. Divisional artillery includes the L65 120 or 120mm mortar, the ubiquitous 120 or M125 self-propelled mortar, as well as the BMR PM81 wheeled self-propelled unit in 81mm caliber, and the TOA PM120 with 120mm mortar. They have a lot of mortars, basically. Plus the new M109A1B 155mm and heavy M110A2 2 or 3mm self-propelled guns. Attached as core assets, Spain's domestic MRLS designs also go into action. This means the Teruel, firing 40 140mm rockets mounted on a Pegasus truck chassis, and older M108A2 105mm self-propelled guns as well. Okay, so basically they're getting a version of a Grad, effectively. Maybe it'll be more accurate or something. We'll see. So, tank tab. Pretty good, although at 2/3 the strength of a regular NATO division. This category is less generous than other armoured formations. Okay, so is it really an armoured formation, is what you have to ask. So, the main battle tank was the MX-30 in multiple variants. So the older version is the MX-30E, an export variant differing from the original French AMX-30B by the fact that its trademark 20mm coaxial gun was replaced by a more standard 12.7mm machine gun. It comes in either the combat or command variants, both with heat rounds. Some upgraded AMX-30 EM1 look slightly different, but in stats their only difference is the fact they carry AP rounds. Wow. So basically they get screwed over and don't get the 20mm chain or 20mm autocannon, basically. That's pretty nasty. So they get shit AMX-30s. About half of the division's tank fleet was upgraded to the AMX-30 EM2 variant, which shares the MX-30B2 stats, meaning the higher range, save again for the coaxial machine gun being 12.7. Why would you take this over the French 5EZ division then? That's brutal. I mean, it's real to life, I guess, but it's brutal that they wouldn't include the 20mm gun on the export version. Lastly, we marched to war a few AMX-30 EM2 Sablier, Santa Barbara blinged. Anyhow, an early 1990s upgrade plan for this tank. It was abandoned due to the end of the Cold War, but simply put, this version is in the M2 with reactive armor. But basically, they're not getting any 20mm guns, which is one of the strongest points of the MX-30. Okay. Pure anti-tank units include the TOACC, an M150 firing ITO, and the BMR C/C, the Tor 2 armed variant of the 6x6 wheeled series. Recon is a very good category. The division had its own fully armoured cavalry regiment. On top of that, we decided to add more formations to beef up the proposed mechanised corps serving in West Germany. As such, the even larger armoured cavalry brigade was added to this division. Okay. Division's own infantry-based recon units include infantry scouts such as the Franco Triadors, which is a two-man team with the CETME-C and the M43. That is a World War II era German Mauser K98K with a scope. They deploy in the Santana Jeeps or the UH-1H. The Reconnaissance, a four-man squad with the CETME-C, and they come in a Santana Jeep or the helicopter again. The Rico Mecandizado? I have no idea. I do not speak any Spanish. Nine-man squads with the CETME-C, the MG42-49, and the M65, deployable in the M113A1 ESPLO Jeep or the UH-1H helicopter. Lots of helicopter deployment here. Or the Caballera di Rico, an 8-man squad with a CETME-C, the MG42-59, and a C90R. They arrived to battle in the BMRPP ESPLO. Dedicated recon vehicles are the new Santana Rasura, a radar-equipped recon jeep. Radar-equipped jeep. That's nice. The VCM-1, which entered service in the 1980 as a combat scout variant of the BMR wheeled APC. This is a 6x6 wheeled armoured car armed with a powerful M242 25mm chain gun. Nice. The VEC H90, while there were technical issues to fit the huge 20mm chain gun in the turret, which was originally designed for a 20mm weapon, many VEC started their career without a turret, or in certain cases with the turret of a retired AML-90. By 1989, those retaining the 90mm guns are the odd ones out. These are the VEC H90, which soldiered on to the end of the 1990s. Aerial recon is provided by the HR-15 with the Spanish designation for a slightly modified BO-105 helicopter. And then elements attached from the Brigada di Caballera Jamara bring the M48A5E2 Rico, which is close in stats to the American M48A5 ACAV. Okay. Anti-air. So, anti-air defenses are good with divisional AA units being autocannons only. You just say it's good and then say they've got autocannons only. So these include the C120 GAI BO1 20mm, the same as the super heavy machine gun system, but this time on an AA mount. Also comes self-propelled in a PEG ASO. There's a CETME 306 twin 20mm and the Bofors L70 40mm. However, core anti-air defences include the following: the AMX-30 RE1, the MX-30 RE2, which are respectively Roland 1 and Roland 2, okay. The GDF-005 twin 35mm towed gun, the same as WARNO SOUTHAG's companion 1st Canadian Division, and the new Aspide is a ground-based AIM-7E Sparrow air-to-air or A-to-A missile-equipped weapon system. Technically, they're air-to-air missiles, obviously, but you can fire these things from a ground base, which is obviously this thing here. It's towed, I guess. Helicopter types are rather mediocre. Attack helicopters were scarce in the Spanish army and not attached to any specific division. This means that you get the new HA.15 Hot, which is slightly different from the BO 105 Par 1, and a few Spanish BO 105 estimates vary, but not much, were converted to gunships, much like the Gazelle 20mm. This was done by the addition of a ventral 20mm, leading to the HR.15 20mm variant. Alright then. Pretty good air tab with the Spanish Ejército del Aire. Again, I don't speak Spanish. Flying into battle in 3 types of aircraft. The C-12 American F-4C modified Spanish service, or modified for Spanish service even, only used ground support role. They come with various rocket and bomb loadouts. The C-14A, a French Mirage F-1 modified for Spanish service, used both fighter and bomber roles. And the C-15, an American F-18, as already introduced with Canada, used in AT, AGM-65E specifically, or fighter roles. The Armoured Division No. 1 might be comparatively weaker in its deployable tank force, but compensates for this with attached supporting arms and other opponent units. This makes it quite a balanced tank division, excelling with its strong recon troops. I think this will all come down to how many cards of infantry it has. More so, well, recon as well to some extent, but the recon troops don't look that good in terms of their weaponry. But we'll see. And then there's a reminder of what's happening with SOUTHAG. Again, they have their memoriam bit. Condolences, obviously, to Eugen's team and the family of Ryan there. I guess next week we'll be finding out about the next pack division, so I will see you all then. Stay safe and have a good week.